Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Access, Innovation, and Disability Symposium. We are so excited to have you all here. Funding for this symposium was made possible through CU Boulder's Impact Grant, the Office for Access and Community Engagement in the College of Arts and Sciences, CU Libraries, and Be Well. My name is Marisha Lopez. I'm a member of the Symposium's Planning Committee. I have long black hair that is currently down, brown eyes, olive skin, and I'm wearing glasses and a gray sweater today. Before I introduce today's presenter, I would like to remind everyone to please mute themselves during the presentation and that closed captioning is available by clicking the CC button. Please feel free to use the chat or your reaction emojis during the presentation to interact with one another. And we will be using the last 10 to 15 minutes of this hour together for questions, during which time you're free to raise your hand or use the chat. So thank you for joining us for the presentation UDL, Learning Shouldn't Be a Puzzle. This presentation will focus on promoting universal design for learning at CU Boulder as a proactive, equity-centered approach to creating accessible and inclusive learning environments. Led by the Disabilities Services Liaison for the student government, the session will explain UDL's 3 core principles and demonstrate how they can be applied in course design, classroom practices, and campus policies. Before we begin, the Planning Committee for this symposium would like to take a moment to acknowledge that today, October 13th, is Indigenous Peoples Day. So I will be sharing some links in the chat to resources that you all may find useful. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you all to our presenter, Lina. Lina is a sophomore at the University of Colorado Boulder, studying speech, language, and hearing sciences and political science with a minor in public health. Outside of classes, Lina is very involved at CU. She's a member of student government as the Disabilities Services Liaison, a board member in DSB, a member of NSSHLA, and involved in Greek life as a member of Gamma Phi Beta. From a very early age, Lina has been incredibly passionate about education being accessible to everyone and is hoping to advocate for this through today's presentation. After she graduates, Lina hopes to continue her education and get her master's degree in speech pathology to become a speech-language pathologist. So before we welcome Lina, I also wanted to let you all know that today has been truly like the Mondayest of Mondays. And Lina was not able to access her presentation, any of her Microsoft logins this morning. And she is a real trooper. And she has showed up this morning, and she is going to be going through her presentation without her slide deck. But we will be getting her slide deck later, and I'll be sending it out to everyone that's here. So welcome, Lina.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I was having some issues this morning and wasn't able to access my presentation, so it might be a little bit shorter than I had planned, but I still wanted to be here and kind of like present all the information I had and also be able to present everything that I'm currently working on this school year. So yeah, I'm gonna hop right into it, and please feel free to drop any questions, and I'm happy to answer them right after. So yeah, I'm Lina. I'm a second year student. I will kind of like skip through the introduction since she has introduced me. Thank you so much. But to begin my presentation, I wanted to share a statistic with everyone to kind of gauge that scope of why this is so important. I had no idea that this was the case until I did some of my own research, but I found that only 30% of students report receiving all of the accommodations that they need, specifically in higher education. So that's why today I wanted to talk about something that actually affects all students. Whether we realize it or not, learning can sometimes feel like missing pieces of a puzzle. And I want you all to think about a time that you were trying very, very hard to understand something in class, but no matter what you did, it maybe just wasn't clicking for you. So now imagine that feeling every day. not because you're necessarily unmotivated or underprepared, but because the class just simply wasn't designed for how you learn best. And that's what a universal design for learning, or what I will shorten it to be, a UDL, aims to fix. So, a universal design for learning is a framework for designing learning environments that meet the needs of all students, not just those who necessarily fit a box of the default. The key word here is always going to be universal. A UDL is proactive rather than reactive. Instead of waiting until a student is struggling and not doing well and then offering an accommodation, it's about designing classes from the start so that every student has multiple ways to engage and understand and show what they know in the best way possible. So every student learns very differently. Some people are visual learners, others prefer listening or hands-on experiences. And at the end of the day, accessibility is truly about equity. It levels the playing field. And when we make learning more accessible, it benefits everybody, not just students with disabilities. It can help multilingual students, students in balancing work and school, and those managing maybe a mental health challenge or a chronic illness as well, or a student who's experiencing none of these things as well. At CU, that connects directly to our mission of inclusive excellence and supporting student success. A UDL is one of the most practical ways to live out those values. And even though accessibility benefits everyone, there's still many stigmas that are attached to it. A big misconception is that accommodations give students an unfair advantage. In reality, accessibility doesn't give anybody a head start. It removes the unnecessary barriers. There's also fear among a lot of students of being labeled as different or needy, so they might not reach out for help. And sometimes students don't even know that the resources exist. So accessibility is often seen as a fix after something does go wrong, instead of something we build into the design of learning from the beginning. Now, looking specifically at CU and higher education in general, there are still areas where we can improve. Many faculty members don't get formal training in UDL principles, and the process to get accommodations for some students can sometimes feel very long and very frustrating. And a lot of classes, I know speaking from experience as a second year student, are still very lecture heavy and not built for different learning styles. Something unique about CU is that we do have our recitation style classes, which are the breakout groups from the bigger lectures. While lectures might be around 450 students, the recitations will be about 20 students. That can still feel very overwhelming to a student, as not all of the information from lecture can be touched on in a 50-minute period once a week. We also find gaps in a lot of technology access. Things like captioning, alternative formats, or flexible deadlines simply are not consistent. When professors have 450 students in one lecture and maybe teach another, on top of that, maybe doing research or doing something else as well, one student can fall through the cracks, or multiple can as well. And finally, there's still physical and digital barriers, older buildings, inaccessible course sites, and very rigid exam formats that don't support all learners. So the good news is that CU already does have a very strong foundation to build from. Disability Services provides accommodations and advocacy for students who do need them. We also have the Academic Success and Achievement Program and tutoring resources that are available to all students. And CU's equity and inclusion programs are working to make campus more welcoming and supportive. Some professors already are implementing UDL practices, things like flexible assignments, recorded lectures, or open discussions. And most importantly, we're seeing more and more student-led advocacy for accessibility on campus. So the pieces are all here. We just really need to work hard on connecting them. And there are a lot of ways CU could continue on building this work. We could start with faculty development, required UDL workshops or training sessions to help different professors design more flexible courses for their students. We can expand course design, for example, giving students multiple ways to show their learning, papers, presentations, or creative projects. Some of my professors do implement this, and I find that it is the best way to show that your students truly are learning. Some of my professors are very strict. It is very much lecture, recitation, straight to an exam. But some of my professors offer alternative options. If we don't want to do an exam, we have the opportunity to do a presentation instead, or do a creative assignment instead that is weighted the same, but offers a different way to present what we know. And on the technology side, we can make captioning, transcription, and accessible course platforms the norm rather than simply the exception. We can implement policy changes like normalizing flexible deadlines or multiple assignment formats so students don't always have to make a special request. Awareness campaigns would help reduce stigma and make resources a lot more visible to students. And finally, a peer support system. Student ambassadors or mentors could help accessibility feel more personal, approachable, and community driven. And with that being said, I wanted to also chat a little bit about what I will be working on throughout this year and specifically this semester in my position as a Disability Services Liaison to also give you guys a little bit more of an idea of what I'm working on and why this presentation is incredibly important to me as well. So, with that being said, I'm currently working on making all lectures and classroom settings captioned. So, a lot of my professors in the SLHS department do this just as it is something that maybe we find more normalized and more appropriate to have in that classroom setting. But a lot of my professors, actually, every single one of my professors outside of that setting, do not have closed captioning for their live lectures, which can really make it a struggle for some students to attend lecture if they're not able to learn, if they're not even able to hear or understand what is being presented by their professor. So with that, I just started working on that. So CU does have these resources in place, especially after the pandemic. But since those resources aren't widely available to professors and easily accessible, professors typically will not go out of their way to do something like that unless it is brought up as a concern to them, which is goes back to the point that a UDL is very much proactive, not reactive. We don't have to want to wait for a student to be struggling before they come and are able to do well. And that is a major project that I'm going to be working on this year. And along with that, I'd like to acknowledge that on a national level and a federal level, there's a lot of fear around what education is going to look like, especially on the higher education level. And that's something I'm going to be working on very closely. I'm working with our legal affairs team as well to look at what funding is going to look like moving forward. Rather than approaching it from a perspective of fear and being afraid of funding being cut to these programs and maybe stopping what we want to keep working on, I again want to look at it from a proactive point of view rather than a reactive one. I don't want to allow things to happen before I jump onto it. Rather, it's really, really important to look at these things beforehand and say, just in case this happens, this is what we are going to do. And this is what is already in place to support students at CU and also students, not just within our direct community. It's important to garner a larger community in order to prevent certain things from happening. So we are in a good spot right now. It's always important to look at what maybe could be instead of approaching it from fear, but approaching it from a proactive point of view. And keeping going with that as well. I have been in this position for the past 2 years, so I've been able to kind of see what needs to be worked on campus. And a large part of my position as an able-bodied student and a student who does not have a learning disability or anything of the sort, it's very important for me to approach my position from a point of learning rather than a point of this is what I would like to work on and this is what my projects will be. I've always taken a point to hear student perspective or perspectives from people who have maybe worked in this field longer than I have. And I urge you all to think about that as well in anything that you are doing. If you maybe don't share that same experience, listen to people who do. And this is what motivated me to do this presentation and also motivates me in all of the things that I've been doing in my position lately. I applied for this presentation last year after I was sitting next to a friend in class and she was telling me how much she was struggling. And she's like, I feel like I couldn't get these resources until I was struggling. I wasn't allowed these resources until there was a percentage grade that showed that I wasn't doing well enough as I should. And then my professors finally were able to help me a little bit more and that they weren't willing to help until a student was struggling. And that is kind of what really motivated me to look more into this. And when we design a UDL, keeping that in mind, it is not just helping one student, two or three. We're improving education for everyone. We look at things from a universal perspective, and that's what I do in my position all of the time. I really like to emphasize to the people I'm talking to when they tell me no, I just tell them that the things I'm working on simply are not hurting anybody. I'm not taking anything away from any student, and a UDL does not take anything away from anyone. If anything, it gives something to everyone. Whether or not these things maybe benefit a student, a caption lecture may not necessarily be more beneficial to me, but it is not hurting me in any way, shape, or form at all. It's simply offering something to another student who maybe will need that more. But if it doesn't necessarily better somebody's learning, it's not going to worsen it. And that is the whole point of a UDL, and looking at anything from a universal perspective is that it's not hurting anybody, it's only helping them. UDLs increase student retention, they support mental health, and they help students feel a lot more engaged and capable. It also prepares CU students for the real world, for diverse workplaces where flexibility and empathy are incredibly key. As I've been working more professionally my sophomore year, my first year, I was mostly just working on campus. But as I've been working off of campus, I've seen that I guess real world. College is very much real world, but outside of just a classroom perspective, companies and workplaces really value this. They value a universal perspective and making a workplace accessible to everybody, regardless of anything. And I would say that that is more important in schools. And typically, we will see UDLs be very accessible in lower education, whether that's high school, elementary school, or middle school, and they become less and less accessible as students get older, as they kind of expect students to simply just advocate for themselves. That's a lot easier said than done. And again, professors sometimes aren't willing to accommodate to one student until the student maybe has a percentage grade that's showing that they are struggling, which is really unfortunate because that should not be the case. The student should be able to succeed from the beginning without necessarily the barriers that are very easy to fix. And most importantly, it builds a lot more of a compassionate and inclusive learning culture. It's one that truly reflects CU's values of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So with that being said, I believe that learning shouldn't have to be a puzzle where only some students are getting all of the pieces. A UDL gives us the chance to make education more flexible, fair, and inclusive. And I don't want this to necessarily be a someday solution. I want this to be a right now solution with just simple ideas is a very good start. This isn't just the responsibility of necessarily disability services or faculty members. This is something that everybody shares. And by embracing a UDL, we create a campus where everyone has the tools to learn and grow and succeed. And something I would like you to all stay with, and I want to keep this presentation relatively short because I wanted more input and questions as well, is that fair doesn't mean that everyone gets the same thing. It means that everyone gets what they need to succeed. And that's something that I have truly been thinking about as I'm going through this presentation, and also as I'm just going through my work on campus and outside of CU as well. So with that being said, I'd love any input or any questions.